Jim. How are you today?
I am good. How are you, Lindsay?
Good. Thank you so much for joining me. Could you explain a little bit about your business and what you do?
Absolutely. So, my name is Jim Pehkonen. I am a life architect, and that is just a fancy name for a life coach. Although, what I do is I work with either businesses at a leadership level, like let's say that you are the owner of a company or you're the manager of a company, and you have a bunch of senior executives and they are not playing as well, which is impacting your bottom line. I can come in and I really offer a twofold solution. First off, we do a bunch of teamwork. And then, second off, I work with the individual people so that they understand how they create this experience of life. And oftentimes that means having them deepen the understanding of the traumas and dramas of the past. And then I also work with people just about the traumas and dramas of the past. Does that make sense?
hmm So you can do it on an individual level and in a group
Mhm.
setting.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The last group that I worked with 2 years ago, their organization sold 3.2 million, and last year they did 10.4.
Wow.
So that is a difference when everybody is really working as a team.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine that that makes a really big difference in not only in the life of the company, but it can also make a difference in the life of each individual involved.
Absolutely. And then it's the ironically interesting things is oftentimes I will also work with a person and their spouse and make sure that that relationship, because we all know that relationships are so easy. And when you get married to somebody, it is just joy every day.
hmm
So, so oftentimes I can work with the spouses and I can smooth out the little bumples between them, which then makes everything better all around. And even more ironic is there are some families that I even work with their teenage kids and really give these young people a heads up in life on
hmm
how to really like not let the traumas and the dramas, which are fairly new to them because they're still in them, but it allows them to understand life, which gives them such a heads up in the world today.
hmm So how did you get started doing this?
I got started doing this when I had to deal with my own traumas and dramas from my childhood. It probably took me 10 to 15 years to heal myself. And so I began coaching people because it shouldn't take anybody 10 to 15 years to heal yourself. I really believe that your birthright is an amazing life. And the quicker you can get to an amazing life, by far the better life is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when did you start your business?
My business was started in December of 2005, believe it or not.
Okay.
Um, yeah, for a few years before that, I had been coaching in a worldwide transformational organization, and I was actually an assistant in the program that trained coaches.
Okay.
So, and that's where I decided, because before that, for literally for 20 years before that, I had been in traditional industry. And when I became the first time I became a general manager, in 9 months, I took the company from 1.8 million to, I believe, around 5 million. And for the next 4 consecutive years, we were 4.8 million to 5.2 million.
Wow.
So that's where I didn't even know I was a good coach then. I just knew I was a good manager of people.
hmm
And we really did it. And even the job before that, I was part of a startup. And even as an operations manager, I was kind of making sure that our success and everything worked, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
So I'm sure you related that experience of being a manager, um, and realizing that maybe it wasn't the business side as much as the people side.
No, it's always the people side.
Hmm.
And one of the things, like if you are a business owner, and one of the things I want to get into with travel, which is how we connected, is when I was a general manager, I would take my management team, we would do a cruise. So I was with them, their spouses, and we got to do a lot of very inadvertent team building.
Hmm.
Now, if I were to do something like that today with a company, we would have very direct, and like there would be directed exercises. But the beauty of travel and coaching is people still get to relax. And I really love cruise ships because you can't go anywhere.
Yeah. And everything's
So
taken care of you, or like all the logistics, the food,
yeah, yeah,
food,
everything's taken
everything.
care of. All you need to do is spend time talking. And oftentimes, when you get to know your people at a different level, you can take that back into the office environment. And you would be surprised at how successful you can be by having an actual getaway. And the other thing is it's tax deductible, because as long as you do so much legitimate business development or people development or exercises where they're getting to really work together, then it's incredible. And the thing is when I work with people on their personal stuff and their professional stuff, it's like I say, you can never bake one piece of a pie.
Hmm.
So we may be working on your traumas and your dramas, and you may actually grow a lot of that up through the processing. It's going to have you do better at work. It's going to have you do better at your leisure activities. It's going to have you be a better partner if you are in a partnership with somebody. And it's really like your whole life. And all of a sudden, right? And if you have little ones running around, you are going to be a better parent to those little ones than you would have before.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That completely makes sense.
Yeah.
So, how do you think that travel has impacted on an individual level as well?
So, one of the things I, in my 30s and 40s, I want to say, depending upon if you, I've been to the UK 3 times, I've been to the European continent 8 times, I've been to, Central or South America at least 8 times. I used to say that was my recharge.
Hmm.
That is how I really like, by getting away. And I have to say, it's even ironic. Taking the management team on the cruise was also a recharge, because anytime you get out of your normal environment and you're doing something different, and that something different may be sitting on a chair watching the ocean go by,
Yeah.
right? It might be going seeing a comedian. It might be, I remember I spent a month in Spain, and the thing was is at the time we had a sister high school in the A Coruña area, so we spent 1 week up with them. So we got to deal, like they had students had come over at the time I lived in Utah, so we went over there. We had students, like the parents brought us over. They cooked for us. We went to the high school. We got to go to the schools and stuff. And then we had 5 young women from Provo, Utah, come for 3 weeks, and we toured the whole country of Spain. And what that did for me was it gave me a real appreciation, not only for the Spanish culture, but for America.
Hmm. That's beautiful. I don't know if you noticed the shaking. We just had an earthquake.
Oh, you did? Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I did notice a shaking, and I noticed you looking around.
Yeah. I was like, wait, where am I? I'm not in a car. Like, that's actually an earthquake happening right now.
Oh, so I've only experienced an earthquake once, and it was the coolest thing in the world. And I grew up in, or I was born in Santa Cruz. I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm always envious, but that was cool that we were able to have one right here, right now.
Yeah. I'll put that in the title. Like,
Yeah, right.
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. I'm glad it was a minor one.
Yeah, it seemed to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh.
sorry. Anyway, the yeah, so it sounds like your experience in Spain was really helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, but every time I've gone on vacation, it's been good. And now my thing, and it's because, and I also have to say, if you're listening to this, travel agents are rare and they offer so much of an advantage. So if you're listening to this and you know Lindsay, use her for your travel, because when you don't use a travel agent and you come up with issues, it's only you to figure that out. But when you have a travel agent and there's issues, you have someone that's not in the experience, that's back here in America, unless she's with you. And even if she's with you, she still has the connection to be able to get things sorted out. You know,
Yeah.
I've had unique experiences because there was one trip. Literally, I got to a foreign airport. I got in the wrong line and I waited for almost an hour. And I got up there and they're like, this is the wrong airline.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because my plane that I was supposed to go back to America with was delayed for a day. So
Mm,
by the time I got over there, they were getting people set up in hotels and everything. Um, but travel agents are invaluable.
exactly. Thank you so much for pointing that out because especially like you said that the recharge period and the getting away is a lot of times the most important part of travel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have someone that's like got your back, like an advisor or my travel agent, like you can often be stuck and it just becomes more stressful than if you had just stayed at home.
Right? And can I share a secret about vacations when you go to a different place?
Yeah, of course.
Whenever you set a vacation up, and let's say it's 2 months from now, all of the sudden you have this bright light, you have this exciting event to live into. And the moment you begin the planning, literally, you are on the first step of being on vacation. And if everything is stressful in life, quite literally, you get to breathe a little bit because you know that you are going somewhere soon. And
Hmm.
that is a secret, that is the secret gem of vacation planning. So right now I coach a gentleman who owns about four businesses and his wife. And the thing is every single time they plan a trip, their whole life from then to the trip, and then when they get back to the trip, basically, and they have nothing planned, they're like, I don't know why, but for some reason, and I'm like, plan your next trip. Just
Yeah.
plan your next trip. And we have them planned through 3 quarters of the year,
Hmm.
and it makes life so much easier. And the thing is just because we say travel doesn't mean you have to go international, right?
Hmm.
Arizona has dude ranches. Different states have different things. Actually, working with a travel agent to even do a road trip in an area of America will have hotels set up, activities set up. And it's even if you're traveling here, it gives you a future to live into. And it will make from today until the day you leave, you have a countdown and you tend to handle a stressful life much, much easier.
Yeah, they've done a study that I don't have the reference for it right now, but that anticipating travel is people find just as exciting as actually going on the trip itself.
I know.
And I
I
understand that
know.
too, because I'm always when I'm planning, I love looking forward to my next trip. And
Mhm.
and keeping that in mind and as a reference point, like, okay, I just have to make it through the next month or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Like it can
Yeah,
be so much more encouraging in your everyday
mhm.
life, like just even daydreaming about it, and
I know.
what you're going to see and experience.
Yeah, you have a future to live into. And in today's stressful life, sometimes you just need a future to live into.
Hmm. Do you find that helps with life coaching?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. The one of the beauties about life coaching is that the minute someone sees hope again, every now and then I will get a client that's in a little bit of a darker place, if I can say it that way.
Hmm.
And sometimes even coaching sessions, they look forward to those coaching sessions because then they even have like this micro future to live into. It's like, oh, I'm going to be talking, it's like today I'm talking to somebody at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, and this client is so excited about, I've done my homework, everything is ready, let's get this going. And it really makes a difference. And oftentimes there is just improvement out of the excitement of taking a look and really clearing a lot of the stuff that stops you from the past, clearing it out.
Hmm. Do you ever recommend travel for your clients?
I do. I absolutely do, especially people that have the means. And it again, it's sometimes it's even weekend camping,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Travel does not have to mean going on a 7 day cruise, getting down to Florida, getting on the boat, et cetera, et cetera. Although the beautiful thing about cruises, I think pretty much most big sea cities have cruises going out of them now, because even when you go for a short time, it recharges you.
Hmm.
Get away.
Yeah, I
And
find that it
that,
also helps change your perspective a little bit
mhm, mhm,
because it gets you
yeah,
out of that day-to-day grind.
mhm, yeah. And you may call it a grind, you may call it a rut, you may call it a grave that just moving you forward. But anytime you can get out of that, it makes a big difference.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Um, oh, and then I was going to ask you about, I remember that you had mentioned microdosing and using psilocybin. I'm curious about
So,
your experience with that.
yeah, so one of the beautiful things I've discovered in the last 5 years is if you suffer from trauma and it gives you PTSD or you have deep anxiety, one of the quickest, it is a quicker way of doing it is with microdosing. Now, I have to put a whole number of caveats on this, right? You have to have an intention. Hopefully, you're working with somebody and they can support the microdosing. Because if you have an intention and you microdose and you're working with somebody, whether that's a coach or a therapist that has been trained in using microdosing, personally, I have used it myself for 5 years and I've used it with clients for 4 years. And it is the quickest way, if you don't have any of the contraindications around it, like if there are certain medications that you just can't take with microdosing. And of all the psychedelic things, I just use psychedelic mushrooms because I find them to be the most powerful. Now, on the travel scene, if you have some really, really deep trauma, um, and you're working with somebody and you find somebody that has done ayahuasca, I don't normally recommend ayahuasca, but literally it is the quickest way to process your trauma and get back to where life is incredible.
Mhm.
And I find though that microdosing, it is one of the most powerful ways to rewire the neuroplasticity in the brain. And the funny thing is processing with a microdose, it's like the event is still going to be there, but it doesn't hold that deep energy that really sucks you down.
Hmm.
So, and microdosing is evolving. New Mexico just passed some laws where they're going through some tests. Here in Nevada, we're in the process of passing some laws. You know, here it's probably going to take 5+ years to decriminalize it. The 60s really did a disservice to the medical and healing side of psychedelics.
Yeah.
But I know that in America, there are 10 states right now that are working with first responders and veterans to have them process that PTSD. And there's different types of microdosing, right? There's ketamine, there's ibogaine, there's psilocybin. So depending upon what your trauma is, there are certain psychedelics that work better than others.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And on the travel aspect of that, there is travel down, especially down to South America. A
Mhm.
lot of this stuff is still illegal here, but down there you can go down to clinics. And
Yeah.
as a veteran, there are a few programs that specifically deal with veterans.
Hmm.
And just do some Google research on that. But it's
Yeah.
like they are very successful. Yeah, if you're listening, do some Google research on that.
Yeah, I've definitely read about like wellness trips that are
Hmm.
that integrate that together into like a
Hmm.
healing experience.
Yep.
And they're brought to really nice places in
Hmm.
South America or Central America. Um, very comfortable
Oh
food
yeah.
taken care of, everything like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
working with, like a therapist or a life coach at
Hmm.
that location as well,
Hmm.
that has been really helpful for people.
Yeah. And you may actually get to work with a shaman. So I
Yeah,
know
exactly.
when I went down in 2005 and 2006 to Iquitos, Peru, there was a shaman there. And that was the most powerful way to process the trauma of my childhood.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
In your 10 to 15 year journey of processing, that was the one thing that
That
you can point
turbocharged
to.
it.
Yeah.
That literally turbocharged it to where I began coaching as a career.
Mm,
And it's where I really had the confidence to make a difference in other people's lives.
hmm. Wow, what a powerful story.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it works. I live a great life.
Yeah, sounds like it. And keeping that positivity, I think, is so important.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about how you see, like, what are the top benefits of travel for people?
Um, well, number one, I think would be just being able to change your perspective.
Hmm.
I think that that's important for everyone, but especially, if you're a professional and you're working
Hmm.
all the time. I also think it's really important for kids and for adolescents, because, they only know what they've been exposed to.
Hmm.
And if they've been exposed to, the same school every day and then video games or sports teams or something like that, like their world is so small and they don't have the perspective of there's so many other people out there and so many different cultures and people look at things in so many different ways that travel is like my number one priority for my own kids too, because
Hmm.
that is how I learned growing up, and that's how I think that that kids, when they experience a different culture or they experience a different place, like it just helps to grow their minds and expand their minds so much, rather than simply learning something out of a book.
That's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kids these days need exposure. And I'm reminded back at the turn of the century when there were 5 girls from Provo, Utah, that had never been out of Utah County, and
Hmm.
now they were in Spain for a month. And I have so many stories, including the time the other 2 people, these were all LDS, young
Hmm.
LDS women.
Hmm.
The other 2 people were 2 bishops, and it was me.
Yeah.
And we had so many out of the box learning experiences for them where they got to learn about cultures outside of their own. And it's funny because toward the end we had a negative experience, so I didn't keep up with them because they were futzing around at the airport, and I had a gun pulled on me because I was waiting for them, and the guards are like, "You move this car now," and I'm like,
Whoa.
and then when I got back in, I yelled at them, and unfortunately, they had to drop off. And that is one of my regrets because they were such wonderful. Like, I just tell the stories of some of their learning lessons that were just so hilarious.
Yeah. I know for me, it was, um, I went on a few different mission type of trips to Mexico when I was, like junior high, early high school, and
Mhm,
that helped me because I traveled around a lot, like my parents traveled a lot.
mhm,
Um, so, seeing history come alive and everything like that was amazing and it helped me to learn
mhm,
so much, but also going to areas that are less fortunate and going as someone who
mhm,
is going to help and serve in a different capacity was really forming as well.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Beautiful.
Hmm.
And it's kind of fun,
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you
you
are,
know.
just digging in the ground, helping to build a house for someone or something like that, like it is fun because you're
Yeah.
outside of your normal day to day.
Yeah. And that makes such a big difference in the
Hmm.
world.
It does, yeah. It helps to create a foundation of service that I think
Mhm,
is important. That's something that I try to actually integrate into my trips that I plan for clients. I always will ask them, do you want to do any kind of service activity while you're on this trip? Because I find
mm.
opportunities to volunteer. People that like Hawaii actually has a whole program called Malama that is, if anyone's traveling to Hawaii, there's also an opportunity for a tourist to give back, helping out with a service project, cleaning a swamp or um, helping
Wow.
like at Pearl Harbor to polish brass, things like that. They have a whole program. And a lot of countries do that as well. A lot of tourist destinations. So I always try to ask my clients if they would like to integrate something like that on their trip because it can
Mhm,
help to just change their perspective as well, and not looking at
mhm.
a trip as simply something for yourself, but as a way to give back to the local community.
Brilliant. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and then also I want to follow up with you about just how important that travel can be for a business. Because I also
Hmm.
plan business retreats, and it sounds like
Right.
that's been helpful for you and your clients.
If you think about a business retreat and you are a business owner, one of the things I'm going to wrap this, what you just said, is you should have a service aspect to that. So on a business retreat, you may be looking at planning the next year, you may just be looking at teamwork, but find a way to give back to where you are, because you are going to learn more about your employees, you're going to learn more about the character, and they are going to learn about each other in a way. This gets to be the glue or the mortar that really holds your team strong, because we all know in the day-to-day business world it can be stressful, but if you actually create a some activities that they're doing, you are going to make things far stronger inside the business, outside the business. how they interact, how spouses interact, how they treat their customers, their clients. You will see changed people.
Yeah. And it that also will help, the business's bottom line. It'll help
Mhm.
productivity,
Yeah.
and just providing that refresh as well, you
Yep.
know.
The ROI is incredible.
Hmm. Yeah. So how can people get in contact with you, Jim, if they'd like to use your services?
So, one thing I also want to mention is if you're not sure, I have a book, and the book is called Wounds to Wisdom. It's available on Amazon. It gives you how I do my work. So, if you're like, oh, I don't know about that guy, grab a book. And this book has a website. It is www.woundstowisdombook.com. To get a hold of me, my email is jim@amazinglifedesign.com. And then my website for my business is www.amazinglifedesign.com.
Great. And that's a beautiful cover too.
Thank you. I know it's like, here, I'll put it up again. It was like, that's what most people say because, you know, the top kind of shows you wounded and really in the fire of pain.
Hmm.
And the bottom shows this level of peace where you're on top of your world and you're just incredible. Like everything is just amazing.
Hmm. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed this
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. It's great to have it. And if you've listened all the way through this, thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a great day, Jim.
Okay. You too.